They've been using these tactics against you for years. The most powerful organization in the world doesn't need bullets to control you. They use ideas, not loud ones. It's not the ones you notice, the quiet ones, the ones that feel like your own thoughts. You've been taught to obey, not with chains, but with invisible scripts. What to want, what to fear, what to never question. This isn't a theory, it's psychological warfare. And you've been living inside it since the day you were born. Your mind has been a battlefield, but no one told you there was a war. If you knew, you might start fighting back. The CIA figured this out decades ago. Why waste a bullet when a belief can do the same job? Why stage a coup when you can collapse a mind? They called it behavioral influence, perception management, cognitive disruption. Sounds clean, but it's not. They used it on enemy agents, then foreign leaders, then on you. You were programmed to self-destruct, not with fire, but with fear. They break your confidence through comparison, shatter your focus with noise, flood your nervous system with guilt, shame, distraction, until you forget you were ever built for power. But here's the twist. Every tactic they use can be reversed. Every weapon of confusion can become a tool of clarity. Every manipulation method can be decoded. And if you learn to spot them, you stop being the puppet. You start becoming the strategist. Because once you know the game, you don't get played. You play harder. And this is where the reversal begins. Next, let me show you how they infiltrated your mind. Without you ever knowing, you didn't sign up for this war, but you're already bleeding. Not from wounds on your skin, from fractures in your mind. See, psychological warfare isn't just for spies or soldiers, it's for civilians. It's for you and the battlefield. It's not some distant war zone. It's your classroom, it's your newsfeed, your relationship, your mind. The tactics that once dismantled enemy governments, they've been recycled, repackaged as education, entertainment, love. Every system you've trusted has run a diluted version of the CIA's psychological playbook. Control the inputs, and you control the identity. School taught you to obey, not to think. You were graded for compliance, not creativity, not courage. The media taught you fear, flooded your mind with chaos, so you'd crave authority, so you'd cling to the very systems that weaken you. Even love became a weapon. They taught you to confuse attachment with worth, to chase validation from people who mirrored your deepest wounds by the time you could walk. We're already being conditioned not to win, but to submit. You were taught to shrink when you should have risen, to apologize when you should have walked away, to doubt yourself so they could decide for you. This is the invisible war, and they've been winning. Asterisk, not with force, with permission. But here's the part they didn't prepare for. You waking up. Because once you see the trap, you stop dancing in it. Once you realize your pain wasn't weakness, it was programming, you start reprogramming. And once you do that, you don't just survive the war, you start fighting back. Next, here's how they shattered your identity, how to rebuild it into something that you weren't born powerless, or trained to be. They didn't need to cage your body, they just had to confuse your mind, and they did it well. The CIA once developed disorientation techniques to break enemy agents, sensory overload, isolation, emotional whiplash, constant barrage of conflicting signals until the target didn't know who they were anymore. Now ask yourself this, does that feel familiar? One day you're told you're special, the next, you're not enough. Love is given, then ripped away. Approval dangled like bait, just enough to keep you chasing. And over time, you forgot the sound of your own voice. That's not an accident. That's programming. It's called learned helplessness. When you've been trained to believe that effort doesn't change anything. So you stop fighting. You stop asking. You settle. You become obedient, not because you are, but because your spirit's been slowly rewired. You didn't lack strength. They buried it under noise, doubt, and emotional dependency. They taught you to seek outside permission for inner worth, to mistake silence for peace, to confuse stillness with safety. But here's the shift. If your weakness was designed, then so is your strength. Because what was conditioned can be deconditioned, and the identity they tried to destroy, it's still there. It's buried under the scripts. Waiting, you're not broken. You're interrupted. And the second you stop letting their blueprint define your limits, you begin building a version of yourself they can't even predict. Next, let's talk about the hidden loops that keep you stuck, and how to finally break them. There's a kind of confidence you've never been taught. Not loud, Not performative, not the flex and brag garbage sold online. This is dark confidence. Asterisk, CIA operatives are trained in it. But to survive. Because when you're being interrogated, when a lie could cost you your life, you don't get loud. You get quiet. You don't react. You observe. Dark confidence is the art of becoming unreadable. Not because you're hiding, but because you've mastered emotional control. You don't flinch when you're tested. You don't explain yourself to weak minds. You don't beg for approval because you know who you are. It's a mental stillness, a chilling kind of calm. Like a weapon with the safety off, untouched, but undeniable. This is what they don't teach you. True confidence isn't noise. It's precision. CIA agents are trained to study everyone. Every tick, every insecurity, every opening. The one who understands the room controls it. What if you started living like that? Not for attention, but for leverage. What if you stopped reacting to everything that poked your ego and started dissecting it? What if you used silence as a weapon? What if you learned to listen, not to respond, but to expose? The world tells. You too, be expressive. But real power lies in being inscrutable. Let them wonder what you're thinking. Let them project. You already know the truth. Because when you move with dark confidence, you're not performing. You're studying, calculating. And when the moment comes, you strike without warning. Next, let's expose the loops in your mind that give your power away and how operatives break them with surgical focus. If you can fracture a person's identity, you don't need to control their body, you already own their mind. The CIA called it identity fracture, a psychological weapon used to destabilize targets, make them question who they are, till they cling to whoever offers certainty. Here's how it works. You overwhelm the mind with contradictions. You feed them praise one moment, shame the next. You make them question their instincts, their memories, their loyalty. It's not just disorienting, it's disabling. And this tactic isn't limited to black sites and interrogation rooms. It's used in boardrooms, bedrooms, social feeds. Asterisk. Narcissists use it to keep you attached. Governments use it to create dependency. Marketers use it to sell you a new self, one product at a time. They create the confusion, then offer the cure, and you chase it, because your identity has been broken into pieces. But here's the shift. What if you learn to fracture your own identity on purpose? What if instead of clinging to the version of you that was shaped by fear, you shattered it? What if you became fluid, unreadable, a mental shapeshifter? Because once you realize yourself is programmable, you stop reacting like a puppet and start designing yourself like a weapon. Reinvention is a form of warfare. It keeps your enemies off balance, can't manipulate what they can't define. So fracture the version of you they think they know. Leave the shell behind and let a sharper, colder, more strategic identity rise in its place. Next, now we go deeper into the second weapon they use to keep you in check. Emotional hooks. Silence isn't weakness. It's a weapon, used correctly. It doesn't just protect your mind, it dominates the room. CIA interrogators mastered this. They learned that the most unsettling tactic isn't shouting, it's withholding. No threat, no emotion, just a steady gaze. A pause that stretches. Too long. A silence that makes the other person start unraveling because they need noise to feel safe. This is called strategic silence. And it's one of the most lethal forms of psychological control. Because here's the truth. Most people fear silence. They fill it with over-explaining, nervous jokes, or desperate validation. They expose themselves just to break the tension. But when you master silence, you stop bleeding power. Start collecting intel. You watch. You let others reveal their patterns. You make them wonder what you're thinking. They become unreadable, and that unnerves them more than any words ever. This isn't passivity, it's precision. In a negotiation, silence makes them fill the void, usually with mistakes. In conflict, silence forces reflection or panic. With manipulators, silence becomes a mirror they can't handle. And for introverts, this is your edge. You don't need to be louder. You just need to be more intentional. Use your quiet like a scalpel, cut through noise, extract truth, leave impact. Because when you can sit in silence without fear, you flip the entire power dynamic. They chase your attention. They lean into your orbit. And by the time they realize what's happening, you've already won next. Let's expose the third tactic. The emotional hooks they've buried in your mind to keep you reactive. And how to sever them for good. There's a moment right before you react where power is either claimed or surrendered. Most people never see that moment. They feel an emotion, and they become it. Anger speaks for them. Fear moves their body. Shame writes their story. But CIA operatives are trained differently. They're taught the art of controlled dissociation, the ability to separate emotion from execution. They can feel panic and still speak calmly. They can feel fear and still act with precision. They detach from them. This is how they operate under pressure, resist manipulation, and remain unreadable in rooms designed to break them. Now imagine you did the same. What if you stopped absorbing every insult like truth? What if you observed your emotions without obeying them? What if you became the watcher, not the puppet? Controlled dissociation isn't about being numb. It's about being in control. You learn to slow time, to let the emotional wave pass. Before you move, this changes everything. You stop falling into traps set by reactive people. You stop feeding the narcissist, the manipulator, chaos engine. You become silent, precise, unreachable. And when you do act, you do it strategically, not emotionally. They won't see you coming. Because while they were playing games with your emotions, you're busy studying the board. This is the shift. You're no longer a player being moved. You're the strategist moving through next. Let's dig deeper into how they manipulate your emotional triggers and how to weaponize emotional neutrality as your new baseline. Power isn't always about who you are. It's about what they think you are. This is perception engineering, a tactic used by CIA operatives to manipulate what others believe. Without ever revealing the truth, they build double identities. They shape their image to fit the mission. They become mirrors, reflecting back exactly what the target needs to see. Not because they're fake, but because they're strategic. And you're already doing it, unconsciously. Trying to be likable, trying to be understood, trying to be real. But realness without control is just vulnerability exposed. Perception engineering flips that, turns your presence into a curated weapon. You control the frame, you speak less, you observe more. You let them fill in the blanks because mystery is more powerful than explanation. You become a question mark in their mind. It's not an open book, a locked vault. Want to command a room? Stop trying to be seen. Start controlling what's seen. Use social mirroring to reflect their energy back at them. They'll feel understood without knowing why. Control first impressions by controlling your posture, tone, pacing. Calm, presence, minimal movement, direct eye contact. Confidence isn't volume, it's intention. Let them project. Let them assume. Let them chase clarity while you remain unreadable. Because when they don't know who you are, they can't predict what you'll do. And that unpredictability is power. You're not just reacting anymore, you're designing the narrative. Next. Now let's uncover the final and most dangerous tactic of all, psychological looping, and how it keeps even the strongest minds trapped. They told you being quiet was a weakness, that silence meant shyness, that observation meant insecurity, that calm meant you were being left behind. They were wrong. Stillness is misunderstood power, because the loudest one in the room usually has the least control. Introversion isn't a flaw, it's a tactical advantage. CIA operatives are selected not for how loud they are, but for how well they can disappear in plain sight, how well they can watch, how well they can wait. Stillness allows focus. Silence sharpens perception. Solitude breeds strategy. You don't reveal your hand. You don't chase the spotlight. You don't burn energy performing for people who haven't earned access. That's not weakness. That's discipline. In a world addicted to attention, you remain unreadable. In a culture that overshares, you become sacred space. While they're reacting, you're mapping. Or they're performing, you're planning. While they chase noise, you become the signal. This is your edge. Introversion lets you feel energy. Others miss. It gives you access to depth, clarity, and emotional precision. And once you stop apologizing for that, you become dangerous. Let them underestimate you. Let them assume your silence means submission. Let them keep talking. While you're building empires in your mind, because you're not the storm they see coming. You're the one that hits without warning. Stillness is not absence. It's containment. It's voltage without a leak. You're not quiet because you're scared. You're quiet because you're calculating. Next, now it's time to dismantle the trap they've used all along, the psychological loops that keep dragging you back into your old identity. You don't build this mindset by watching. You build it by training. Psychological strength isn't a trait, it's a discipline. And if you want to move like a ghost in a world of noise, you need to sharpen your mind like a blade. Here's how to begin point 1. Silence training. Start your day with 10 minutes of stillness. No music, no phone, just awareness. Train your nervous system to find calm without stimulation. Because silence isn't absence, it's preparation. Point 2. Cold observation drills. Walk into a room and say nothing. Scan. Watch facial tics, tone shifts, body posture. Track insecurity. Study tension. This is how spies profile threats. This is how you start reading people like Code 3. Confidence rituals. Every morning, speak your future identity out loud. Not affirmations, but commands. I move with precision. I'm unreadable. I control what they see. Make your mind obey your words. 4. Emotional detachment reps. When triggered, delay your reaction by 5 seconds. Just observe, not to suppress, but to detach. This is how you start separating emotion from action. This is how you take the wheel back. 5. Micro-discipline routines. Make your bed with precision. Organize your space. Hold posture. Breathe with control. Tiny acts of order train your brain for war. This isn't aesthetic. This is neurological. You are rewiring your brain from passive to strategic, from reactive to intentional, from fractured to focused. This is your initiation. You're not just learning the tactics, you're becoming the weapon. Next, let's pull the thread all the way through the final revelation about why this training was never about them. It's always been about reclaiming you. You were never weak. You were just untrained. You didn't lack intelligence. You lacked a map, and now you have it. The same psychological tactics used to break minds, you now hold them in your hand. The confusion they engineered, you've decoded it. You're not the reactive one anymore. You're the observer. You're the silence. Behind the noise, the calm inside the storm, you don't chase attention. It bends around you. You don't prove your worth. You move like someone who already knows it, because you're not playing checkers anymore. You're playing warfare, and you've stopped being the pawn. You are the unreadable force they can't figure out. The strategist who sees 5 moves ahead. The one who speaks less and knows more. You don't flinch. You don't explain. You don't beg. You sit in. Your stillness. You listen like a weapon. You respond with surgical intent. And when you walk into a room, you're no longer wondering how they see you. You're watching how they move around you. That's the shift. This isn't motivation. This is identity engineering. You've been handed the blueprint. Now build yourself into something untouchable. In your next conversation, say less. Observe more. Watch what they reveal when you stop filling the silence. Feel the power in your restraint. Let them lean in. Them chase understanding. Let your quiet become louder than their words. Because now you move like a ghost with a purpose. You carry power in your presence. You're not a pawn anymore. You're the board and the game. It's yours now.